Hey there, ready to take a deep dive with me today?
Sure am.
We're going to be exploring how you can navigate relationships
Okay.
more effectively by learning to trust your instincts.
Sounds good.
We'll be using Trusting Your Instincts, Navigating Relationships Effectively,
Okay.
an episode from the Inner Balance Red Point podcast as our guide.
Right.
Um, you know, that feeling, right?
Yeah.
When something just feels a little off in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't quite put your finger on why.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack that feeling
Oh, okay.
and gives you the tools to decode what your gut is trying to tell you.
I like it.
I can definitely relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
Like this one time, I was starting a new job,
Okay.
and there was this colleague
Mm-hmm.
who everyone seemed to love.
Uh-huh.
They were charismatic, successful, the whole package.
Yeah.
But whenever I interacted with them, I felt this knot in my stomach.
Huh.
I just brushed it off as just nerves from starting a new job.
Oh, yeah, sure. New situations can definitely trigger anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
My unease was right.
Really?
A few months in this seemingly perfect colleague
Yeah.
was exposed for some unethical behavior.
Wow.
Looking back, my instincts were trying to warn me.
That's a perfect example of how our subconscious often picks up on subtle cues that our conscious mind misses.
So what exactly are these instincts we're talking about?
Right.
They almost seem mystical sometimes.
That's a common misconception.
Oh, really?
Yeah, instincts are actually a fascinating blend of intuition and learned behavior.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Right.
Your brain is constantly processing information,
Uh-huh.
but you're only aware of a small fraction of it.
Okay.
It's like the famous tip of the iceberg analogy.
Right.
Below the surface, your subconscious is taking in all sorts of information,
Yeah.
analyzing body language, tone of voice,
Yeah.
even inconsistencies in someone's stories.
Okay, so it's like our subconscious is this super sleuth working behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Wow.
And sometimes that super sleuth spots red flags before our conscious mind even knows where to look.
I'm starting to understand why tuning into this inner voice is so important.
Yeah.
Especially in relationships.
For sure.
But how do we know when our instincts are actually onto something?
Well, the Inner Balance Red Print episode lays out 4 key signs
Okay.
that you should pay attention to those gut feelings.
I'm all ears.
Okay.
What should we be looking out for?
First, there's that feeling of unexplained discomfort.
Okay.
It's that something's just not right sensation.
Yeah.
Even if you can't logically explain why.
Oh, so it's like when you meet someone
Yeah.
and you feel inexplicably uneasy,
Mm-hmm.
even if they seem perfectly charming on the circle.
Precisely.
Okay.
Instead of brushing it off, ask yourself why you're feeling that way.
Right.
What's causing that dissonance?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So unexplained discomfort is the first sign.
Right.
That's the next one we should be aware of.
Repetitive patterns.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed how you might find yourself in similar situations with different people?
Yeah.
Especially if they're negative experiences.
Oh, totally. It's like some of us have a knack for attracting a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Even if that type isn't particularly good for us.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
If you find yourself constantly dating partners who are emotionally unavailable,
Right.
or offending people who take advantage of your generosity, your instincts might be trying to show you a pattern you haven't fully recognized yet.
Okay, so unexplained discomfort and repetitive patterns.
Right.
What's the third sign our instincts are trying to tell us something?
The third sign is inconsistencies.
Gotcha.
This is when someone's words and actions don't align.
Okay.
It might be something small like saying they value honesty,
Yeah,
but then getting caught in a lie.
right. And those little inconsistencies can really add up over time, can't they?
Exactly.
It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts for our trust.
It's not always about major betrayals.
Right.
Sometimes it's those subtle mismatches between what someone says and what they do
Yeah.
that
yeah.
can erode trust and create that feeling of unease.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've covered unexplained discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
repetitive patterns,
Mhm.
inconsistencies.
Right.
What's the final red flag our instincts might be waving?
This one's all about tuning into your body.
Okay.
Physical reactions can be incredibly powerful indicators,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to how you truly feel about someone or a situation.
You mean like that classic butt feeling?
Yeah.
I know for me, sometimes my stomach clenches up around certain people,
Uh-huh.
even if I can't quite explain why.
Exactly. Pay attention to those physical sensations.
Okay.
Are you feeling butterflies of excitement?
Right.
Or that pit in your stomach feeling of dread?
Got
Your
you.
palms sweating, or is your heart racing?
Mm.
These physical cues can be incredibly insightful.
It's like our body is trying to send us a memo.
It's more like our bodies are sending Morse code,
Okay.
and we need to learn how to decipher it.
So we've talked about what instincts are
Yeah,
and the signs they might be sending us.
right.
But knowing is only half the battle, right?
That's a great question.
What do we actually do when we sense those red flags?
Well, it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between jumping to conclusions
Mhm.
and ignoring those warning signs altogether.
It's like we have this internal guidance system,
Right.
but we need to learn how to use it effectively.
Exactly.
How do we find that sweet spot
Yeah.
between overreacting
Yeah.
and ignoring our gut feelings altogether?
Well, Inner Balance Red Print emphasizes the importance of knowing when to step back.
Okay.
It's not about being paranoid or avoiding every potentially challenging relationship.
Right.
It's about setting healthy boundaries and prioritizing your well-being.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we know
Right.
when those gut feelings warrant a step back
Mm-hmm.
rather than just a deep breath and a little more patience?
They actually outline 3 scenarios.
Okay.
Where taking a step back is probably the wisest move.
Right.
The first one is when you consistently feel drained
Okay.
or anxious around someone.
So it's about paying attention to the energy dynamic.
Exactly.
I think we've all had that friend or family member
For sure.
who leaves us feeling completely exhausted after spending time with them.
It's not about blaming them,
Right.
but recognizing that the relationship might be taking more than it's giving.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly feeling anxious or on edge around someone,
Mhm.
that's a sign that something's not quite right.
So feeling consistently drained or anxious is the first red flag.
Right.
What's the second situation where we should consider stepping back?
The second scenario is when there's a pattern of manipulation
Okay.
or dishonesty.
Gotcha.
It might start with little white lies,
Huh.
broken promises,
Yeah.
or a tendency to twist the truth to their advantage.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah.
I once had a friend who was notorious for borrowing money
Mm-hmm.
and forgetting to pay it back.
Oh, wow.
Looking back, those seemingly small instances of dishonesty
Yeah.
were actually a huge red flag.
Absolutely. Those small acts can often be a sign a larger pattern
Right.
of disrespect or a lack of integrity.
So we had feeling drained,
Mm-hmm.
feeling anxious,
Right.
noticing patterns of dishonesty.
Yes.
What's the final sign that it might be time to create some distance?
The third situation Inner Balance Red Print highlights
Okay.
is when you're in a relationship that feels consistently one-sided.
Okay.
Are you always the one initiating contact,
Yeah.
making plans, or offering support?
I think we've all experienced that at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's a friendship or a romantic
For
relationship.
sure.
It's like you're always the one giving,
Right.
but you're not receiving the same energy in return.
Exactly. Reciprocity is crucial for any healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. Of course, there will be times when one person needs more support than the other.
Sure.
But if it's a constant dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
it's worth taking a step back and reassessing
Right.
whether this relationship is truly serving you.
That's such a good point.
Mm.
It's not selfish to prioritize your own needs and well-being,
Exactly.
especially when a relationship is causing more harm than good.
You're absolutely right. Inner Balance Red Print really drives home the point.
Yeah.
That trusting your instincts is ultimately about trusting yourself
Mhm.
enough to walk away from what's not serving you.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's about honoring your own needs and setting boundaries that protect your emotional well-being.
for sure.
But what about those of us who struggle to even hear those gut feelings in the first place?
Right.
Is there anything we can do to strengthen our intuition?
That's a great question. And the good news is that intuition is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Right.
And Inner Balance Red Print offers some really practical tips
Okay.
for amplifying that inner voice.
Okay. I'm ready to give my intuition a workout.
All right.
Where do we start?
The first technique they recommend is mindfulness.
Okay.
Now, when you hear mindfulness, you might think of meditation,
Right.
which can certainly be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really about paying closer attention to your thoughts,
Yeah.
feelings,
Mhm.
and physical sensations in the present moment.
So it's about tuning into those subtle cues our body and mind are sending us.
Absolutely.
I think that's something a lot of us could be more intentional about.
It's easy to get swept up in our busy lives
Yeah.
and ignore those internal signals.
Right.
But the more we practice mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it becomes to recognize those whispers from our intuition.
Gotcha.
It's like learning a new language.
Yeah.
At first, it might seem foreign and difficult,
Right.
but with practice, it starts to feel natural.
So mindfulness is our first step towards building that intuitive muscle.
Right.
What's the next technique we can use?
The second technique is all about learning from the past.
Okay.
They recommend taking some time to reflect on past relationships,
Right.
both the positive and the negative ones.
Okay.
Think about those times when your gut feelings were spot on,
Uh-huh.
but also those times when you might have ignored your intuition
Yeah.
and ended up regretting it.
Right.
What were the signs you missed?
Mm-hmm.
What can you learn from those experiences?
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about turning our past relationships into valuable data points
Exactly.
for future decisions.
By analyzing those past
Yeah.
experiences, we can start to recognize patterns
Uh-huh.
and become more attuned to our own instinctual responses.
Okay, so we've got mindfulness and reflection.
Right.
What's the third tool in our intuition strengthening toolkit?
The third technique ties back to what we talked about earlier.
Okay,
Listening to your body.
right,
We already discussed how physical sensations can be powerful indicators,
right.
but this goes beyond just noticing those immediate gut reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Inner Balance Red Print emphasizes paying attention to things like sleep disturbances, changes in appetite,
Gotcha.
or even just feeling inexplicably off
Yeah,
as potential signals from your intuition.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like our body is trying to communicate with us on a deeper level,
Uh-huh.
sending us messages we need to learn how to decode.
I like to think of it as our body having a sixth sense,
Oh.
kind of internal radar system that's always scanning the environment
Yeah.
for potential threats or opportunities.
Okay, so mindfulness, reflection,
Right.
and tuning into our physical sensations.
Yes.
What's the final technique for boosting our intuition?
This one might seem a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
but it's about seeking advice while still trusting yourself. Talking to trusted friends or family members
Uh-huh.
can provide valuable perspective.
Right.
But ultimately, you have to make the decision that feels right for you.
That's a really important point. It's
Yeah.
about getting outside input
Mm-hmm.
without letting others override your own inner compass.
Exactly. It's like getting a second opinion from a doctor.
Right.
But ultimately, you're the one who has to live with the consequences
Yeah.
of the decisions you make.
For sure.
And Inner Balance Red Point really stresses the importance
Okay.
of not letting fear of judgment or disapproval from others
Right.
drown out your own intuition.
It's about honoring your own truth,
Yes.
even if it goes against the grain of what others might think.
Precisely. And that can be incredibly empowering.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
From what instincts are to how they manifest,
Right.
and even some powerful techniques for amplifying that inner voice.
I like it.
It's clear that trusting our instincts can be incredibly valuable,
Definitely.
not just for avoiding negative relationships,
For sure.
but for creating positive ones as well.
Absolutely.
It really feels like we've been given a whole new set of tools
Right.
to decode what our intuition is trying to tell us.
Yeah.
But I think the real magic happens
Uh-huh.
when you start applying these insights to your own life.
Right.
What does it actually look like?
Yeah.
To trust your instincts
Mm-hmm.
in those everyday interactions and decisions.
Inner Balance Red Print makes a great point about how trusting your instincts isn't just about avoiding bad relationships.
Right.
It's also about being open to those connections that feel right,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't perfectly fit the mold
Yeah.
of what you think you should be looking for.
So it's like having this internal compass
Exactly.
that can guide you towards the relationships that are meant for you,
Yeah.
even if those relationships don't make logical sense at first glance.
You might meet someone who, on paper,
Yeah.
wouldn't be your typical type,
Right?
but something about them just feels right.
Okay.
Or maybe you have an opportunity to join a new group or take on a project that scares you a little
Yeah.
but excites you even more.
Right.
Those are the moments where you have to lean into that inner voice and see where it leads you.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's about trusting that sometimes the best decisions, the ones that lead to the most growth and fulfillment,
Right.
come from a place of intuition
Yeah.
rather than pure logic.
You hit the nail on the head.
It's not about throwing logic out the window entirely,
Right.
but recognizing that intuition has its own kind of wisdom,
Exact.
one that's informed by our experiences, our values,
Uh-huh.
and even our subconscious perceptions.
And the more we practice trusting those gut feelings, the more confident we become in our own ability
Right.
to navigate the complexities of relationships.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into trusting your instinct,
Okay.
what's the one message you hope will really stick with our listener?
I think the most important takeaway is that trusting your instincts is ultimately about trusting yourself.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that you have this incredible inner guidance system
Right.
that can lead you towards healthier, more authentic connections.
Mm-hmm.
It's about honoring your own needs and boundaries,
Yeah.
even when it's difficult.
Right.
And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
That's good to hear.
We all have instincts,
Yeah.
and we can all learn to use them to create more meaningful relationships
Mm-hmm.
and a more fulfilling life.
That's such a beautiful reminder, and I think Inner Balance Red Print would echo that sentiment.
I think so too.
This deep dive has given us so much to think about,
It really has.
and I hope it's empowered you to start listening to your own intuition
Yeah.
a little more closely.
Me too. And remember, building that trust takes time and practice.
Right.
Be patient with yourself.
Okay.
Allow yourself to make mistakes
Mhm.
and celebrate those moments when your gut feelings lead you in the right direction.
So before we sign off,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought.
All right.
What if, instead of second-guessing ourselves,
Yeah,
we started embracing those gut feelings as valuable insights?
I like that.
What if we viewed those moments of uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
as opportunities to deepen our self-awareness
Right.
and refine our inner compass?
It's a great way to look at it.
I encourage you to carry that curiosity with you
Yeah.
as you continue to explore the fascinating world of intuition
For sure.
and learn to trust the wisdom that resides within you.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
Until next time, keep exploring.